In the early 1960s, when Italy was synonymous with sleek design and America with raw horsepower, most believed that these worlds were too far apart to ever meet. But one small Italian company had other ideas. Led by a man named Renzo Rivolta, his idea was to build a grand touring car that hailed from Italy but was different from the rest by combining European craftsmanship with American muscle. This wasn't going to be just another Italian-built Ferrari fighter. It was a daring hybrid that was designed to punch up a weight class and unseat the likes of Ferrari while severely undercutting them on price and offering a more reliable product. It seemed like the perfect plan and the perfect car. But when the dust settled, just under 800 of these cars were ever built. So what happened? Well, this is the tale of the Ferrari fighter that never really got a chance to fight, the Iso Rivolta. The story of the Iso Rivolta begins in a far less glamorous place than the intro, with a quirky little bubble car in fact. Remember the odd but iconic BMW Isetta? Yeah, that strange microcar actually traces its origins back to Renzo Rivolta's company. In the aftermath of World War II, as Italy's economy struggled to rebuild, practical and affordable transportation was in high demand. And Iso, initially known for making refrigerators and scooters, saw an opportunity. In 1953, they introduced the Isetta, a small, economical vehicle ideal for the narrow streets and tight budgets of post-war Europe. Now, the Isetta, although a cool idea, just did not sell well in Italy, which prompted Iso to license the vehicle abroad to other marques. One of these was BMW, who was struggling to recover from the war and was in need of a vehicle to fill the gap between motorcycles and full-sized cars. In a pivotal business move, Iso licensed the Isetta production rights to BMW in 1955, and this deal proved to be mutually beneficial. For Iso, the Isetta had served its purpose, and this licensing deal now brought the company financial success and some level of recognition, while BMW turned the little car into a bestseller, which helped secure their future. It was a win-win. In the late 1950s, with the Isetta's success behind him, the owner of Iso, Renzo Rivolta's, ambitions grew further. No longer content to stay in the microcar market, he set his sights on something far grander, a luxurious GT car that could compete with the likes of Ferrari and Maserati. However, there was a practical reality to face. Iso didn't have the resources to develop an exotic, high-strung Italian V12, as well as building an entire car from scratch. Designing an engine of that caliber required immense capital and engineering expertise, both of which were out of reach for such a small company. Instead, Rivolta found a solution that was as clever as it was unconventional. He turned to America, specifically to the American V8s. These engines, in this case specially sourced from General Motors, offered a trifecta of advantages compared to their Italian V12 counterparts. They offered raw, reliable power at lower production costs, and they were easier to maintain. While Ferrari and Maserati focused on the more complex and temperamental engines, Rivolta saw the American V8 as a way to give his car insane performance without sacrificing durability or pushing the limits of his budget. With the idea and plan for the car fully fledged out, it came time to design Iso's first car post-Isetta. And let's just say Renzo Rivolta enlisted the help of some of the brightest engineers and designers in the world to make his grand touring dream a reality. And Giorgetto Giugiaro was one of them. Working at Bertone, Giugiaro, who would go on to become one of the most celebrated automotive designers in history, penned a design that was sleek, understated, and purposeful. Iso's new car would be called the Iso Rivolta IR300, and it was set to release in 1962, combining its clean, sharp lines with a uniquely muscular stance, which could best be described as looking like a Ferrari with a serious attitude problem. And not to mention that all the body panels were hand-formed from steel as well to ensure that this was the highest quality product they could make. Now, underneath the Rivolta's stunning exterior, Iso also crafted a sophisticated chassis to match. Engineer Giotto Bizzarini, another automotive legend who had previously worked on Ferrari's 250 GTO, was tasked with designing a chassis for the new Iso Rivolta IR300. And he developed a steel platform with a tubular frame and a DD-on rear axle, which gave the IR300 many of the benefits of a true independent rear suspension setup, just at a lower production cost, ensuring that the car would handle just as well as it looked. The front suspension was independent, featuring wishbones and coil springs, while disc brakes on all four corners provided strong stopping power and were a pretty advanced feature for the time. The engine in the IR300 was the same basic variant that was found in Chevrolet's mid-range Corvette of the period, a 327 cubic inch or 5.4-liter V8. In the Iso configuration, the 327 made 300 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and around 360 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM, which was more than enough to propel the 3,070-pound Iso Rivolta to some pretty serious speeds. Being a pushrod V8, the engine delivered impressive torque low down and was very well suited for effortless highway cruising and aggressive acceleration alike. Paired with either a 4-speed Borg-Warner T10 manual transmission, a 3-speed automatic, or an optional 5-speed manual, the IR300 had a seamless connection between the engine's power and the road, allowing for brisk acceleration all the way up to a top speed of around 140. The Iso Rivolta IR300 could accelerate from 0 to 60 in about 7.2 seconds, which was a respectable time for a Grand Tourer in the early 1960s, and compared to its competition, it was faster than the Ferrari 250 GTE and Maserati Sebring in that 0 to 60 sprint. And stepping inside the IR300, it was clear that this car wasn't just about performance either. It was crafted for those who valued luxury and fine details. Lavish leather upholstery and sculpted seats offered long-distance comfort, matching the refinement of far more expensive Grand Tourers. The dashboard featured a minimalist yet elegant design with hand-polished wood trim and large, easy-to-read gauges. Tasteful chrome accents and solidly built controls underscored the sense of quality throughout, highlighting the Iso Rivolta's blend of Italian craftsmanship and high-end luxury. When you consider the fact that when it was released in 1962, the Iso Rivolta IR300 had a price tag of approximately $6,500 in the US market, while the Ferrari 250 GTE cost nearly double that. It was hard to argue with the value proposition of the Iso Rivolta, but how did it sell? And to be honest, the IR300 didn't sell that well. It did not achieve the sales success that one might have expected for such a well-rounded Grand Tourer, with only 799 units produced from 1962 all the way up to 1970. And the major reason for the Iso Rivolta's limited sales was the brand's relative obscurity. While Ferrari, Maserati, and Aston Martin had all built strong reputations at this time, Iso was mainly known for its Isetta microcar, if it was known at all, which meant that it lacked some of the prestige that buyers sought in a Grand Tourer. Although competitively priced, the IR300 occupied a weird middle ground. It offered neither the exotic appeal of a Ferrari nor the affordability of a Corvette. Additionally, lacking a strong dealership network, especially in America, made it very hard for Iso to compete with more established brands, when the IR300 itself, with its American powertrain, would have been an ideal player in the US market had it not been for the lack of dealers and also the fact that you could get a Corvette with the same engine for much less money. In an effort to refresh the IR300, Iso launched the IR340 variant, which utilized a 340 horsepower version of the Chevy 327 small block with a more aggressive camshaft in it. This improved performance but only marginally impacted sales, representing 167 of the 799 cars built before it was killed off in 1970. And the entire company and their other models, like the Grifo, didn't last much longer either. Which is a shame because with what Iso was able to accomplish in just over a decade in the performance car world, one could only wonder how serious of a competitor to Ferrari they could have been if they just were able to stay in business for another few decades. Despite limited sales during production, the Iso Rivolta IR300 and IR340 have become highly prized by collectors for their unique blend of Italian design and American V8 power. While still overshadowed by brands like Ferrari and Aston Martin, these cars have now started to see their values rise significantly, with well-preserved examples now fetching between $150,000 and $250,000 US. And this surge in value reflects a growing appreciation for the brand and their forward thinking in the time. Though Iso never achieved the fame of its rivals, these cars have found their place in niche automotive history. And that brings us to our closing question. What do you think of the Iso Rivolta? If you had the money back then to buy this, or a Corvette, or even a Ferrari 250 GTE, which one would you have chose back in the day? But as always, thank you all for watching another video. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. But otherwise, I will see you all next time, enthusiasts.